The rain had been falling for hours, the kind that doesn't crash or roar. It just seeps into you, soft and endless. The streets looked like spilled ink, streetlights bending through puddles. I was sitting on the curb near the gas station, hugging my knees, mascara running down my cheeks like war paint. My phone was dead. My mother's words were still echoing in my head. "You think you're an adult, Emily, but you don't know what the world can do to a girl like you." I had slammed the door and walked out without knowing where I was going. I just needed space, air, anything but that suffocating house. That's when I saw the headlights slow down. It was an old blue pickup truck, the kind that looked like it had been through storms and still refused to quit. The window rolled down, and there he was. "Emily?" His voice was careful, almost disbelieving. "You okay, kid?" It took me a second to remember who he was. Mr. Carter, my mom's old friend from college, divorced, worked as a mechanic now. He used to come over when I was little, fixing our car or helping with something around the house. I remembered him as the man who always smelled faintly of motor oil and rain. I wiped my face with my sleeve. "I'm fine," I lied. He looked at me for a long moment, then nodded toward the truck. "Come on. You shouldn't be out here." Something in his voice, calm, steady, made me stand up. I got in. The seat was cracked leather, warm from the heater. He didn't ask questions at first. We just drove. The wipers moved rhythmically and the radio hummed low, an old jazz station, the kind of music that fills silence without pushing it away. After a few minutes, he spoke. "Your mom called me, said you stormed off." I turned to the window, pretending to watch the rain. "Of course she did. She's worried. She's controlling," I said, sharper than I meant to. He didn't argue. He never did. That's the thing about older people. They know when to let silence do the talking. We passed the diner where my friends usually hung out. The neon sign flickered 24 hours, though it looked more like pen 4 hours. I laughed quietly at that, and he caught it. "Still got that weird sense of humor," he said, smiling just slightly. "Still driving the same truck." I shot back. He chuckled. "Some things don't need replacing." I don't know why, but that made my throat tighten. We stopped at the lookout point above town, a quiet spot with a wooden fence and a view of the valley lights. I'd been there before with friends, but it felt different that night. The rain had slowed to a mist, the world wrapped in gray and gold. He turned off the engine, but left the heater running. "You want to tell me what happened?" I hesitated. Then, maybe because it was him, because he wasn't judging, just there, I started talking. About my mom. About how she treated me like I was still 12. How she didn't want me to go to college out of state. How every argument ended with her saying I'd end up just like her, as if that was the worst fate possible. He listened. Really listened. No interruptions. No fixing. Just quiet attention. When I finally ran out of words, he said softly, "She's scared, you know? Letting go isn't easy, especially when it's all you've known." I wanted to be angry at that, at his calmness, at how reasonable who made her sound, but I couldn't. He was right. "I just feel invisible," I whispered. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and said, "You're not invisible, Emily. You just haven't met the world yet." The way he said my name made my chest ache. We sat there for what felt like hours. He told me about his divorce, how silence can become its own kind of noise, how one day you wake up and realize the person next to you hasn't really looked at you in years. "It's strange," he said. "You can live with someone, share a bed, and still feel completely unseen." "I think that's how my mom feels," I murmured. He nodded slowly. "Probably. That's why she's holding on too tight. You're the only thing that hasn't disappointed her yet." That hit harder than I expected. He reached over and handed me a tissue from the glove box. Our fingers brushed, just briefly, and I pulled my hand back like I'd touched fire. I wasn't sure what that was. Guilt? Confusion? Or something entirely different? Around midnight, the rain stopped completely. The clouds broke apart, and the moon spilled over everything, silver and clean. I asked him why he'd never left town. He shrugged. Some people are built for moving. Some are built for staying. And you're a stayer? Guess so. He smiled faintly. What about you? I looked out at the valley lights. I want to run until I can't recognize anything. He laughed quietly. Then I hope you do. His voice was so soft, it almost sounded like a blessing. We drove back in silence. When he pulled up to my street, the house lights were off. My mom probably cried herself to sleep. The anger inside me had cooled into something small and sad. Before I got out, I turned to him. "Thanks for picking me up." He nodded. "Anytime." Then, after a pause, he said, "You're gonna be okay. Maybe not tonight, maybe not next week, but you'll be fine." I wanted to believe him. He started to say something else, but stopped. Just smiled that quiet, half-tired smile. I opened the door, hesitated, then said, "You ever regret staying?" He looked straight ahead. "Sometimes, but then I meet someone who reminds me that staying means being here when someone needs a ride home." I didn't know what to say to that, so I just said, "Good night, Mr. Carter." "Good night, Emily." I thought that would be the end of it, but it wasn't. A week later, I stopped by the shop where he worked, an old garage that smelled like metal and memory. I brought him coffee and a muffin from the diner. He looked surprised but happy to see me. "You didn't have to do that," he said. "I wanted to," I told him. After that, it became a quiet routine. I'd stop by sometimes after school, pretending I needed air or advice or a place that didn't expect anything from me. He'd tell me stories about fixing cars and people, how both could be broken in ways you can't always see. Sometimes he'd play music on a small radio in the corner, and we'd sit there, just listening, not saying much. It felt safe. But small towns have big mouths. People started talking. My mom heard. She showed up at the garage one afternoon, voice sharp and face pale with anger. "What the hell do you think you're doing, Emily?" I froze. Mr. Carter stepped out from behind the counter, wiping his hands on a rag. "She just brings me coffee sometimes, that's all," he said evenly. Mom glared at him. "You're 45. She's a kid." He didn't flinch. "I know exactly how old she is." That made her angrier. "Then you know better." I wanted to shout that it wasn't like that he'd never touched me, never crossed a line, but my voice wouldn't come out. She grabbed my arm, "Get in the car." I looked at him. He gave me the smallest nod, the kind that said, "It's okay. Go." So I did. That night, Mom didn't yell. She just cried. "I lost my best friend because of this. Do you even understand that?" I didn't, really, but I knew she wasn't just mad. She was scared. We didn't talk for days. The silence in our house was heavier than any argument. When I finally went back to the garage a week later, it was closed. A handwritten sign hung on the door. "Closed for a while. Thanks for everything." I stood there for a long time, trying to understand the ache sitting in my chest. It wasn't romantic, not really. It was something quieter, like losing a safe place in a loud world. Months passed. I graduated, got accepted to a college 3 states away. Before I left, I drove up to the lookout one last time. The same spot where we'd sat that night, the valley lights stretching endlessly below. I thought about him. His steady voice, the rain, the warmth of the truck. I took out my phone and typed a message I never sent. "You were right. I'm gonna be okay." Then I deleted it. Sometimes I still see that old blue truck around town when I visit home for holidays. Maybe it's his, maybe not. But whenever I do, I feel that same calm, the one that night gave me. Because the truth is, he didn't save me. He just showed me that someone could see me, even when I couldn't see myself. And sometimes that's enough.